The king was having an affair with a woman who was being called a witch by his wife. The king's wife was so furious that she ordered her thrown into the dungeon, where no one ever came out alive. But when the king found out that the woman had disappeared, he knew something was up. He went to see the queen and demanded an explanation. "I want that which brought before me," he said, his eyes blazing with anger. "You have done well to get rid of her. She was a dangerous woman, and I wanted her gone." "Why did you want her gone?" The king looked away, ashamed. "Because she was a witch. Wasn't she beautiful? Didn't you admit it?" The queen replied, "She was indeed beautiful. And, what is more, she was also clever. It is no wonder you fell under her spell. But I am glad she is gone now. She would only have caused trouble." The king could not understand what the queen meant. What kind of trouble was she after his throne? Was she trying to poison him? Or was there some other reason? He dismissed these thoughts from his head. There could only be one reason why the queen wanted the woman gone. Because she loved him and didn't want to share him with anyone, not even a witch. As the king left his wife and went back to his chambers, he couldn't help but think about the woman. Was she really a witch? Had she put some kind of spell on him? The king was a powerful ruler, but he was also a man in love. And when those two things collide, well, anything can happen. So let's get started. In the dark and dank dungeon of Castle Ravenloft, a young woman sat chained to the wall. Her name was Alara, and she was known throughout the kingdom as the Witch of Raven. But to those who really knew her, she was much more than just a witch. She was a healer, a wise woman, and a powerful sorceress. Alara had been brought to the castle by the king's wife, the queen, who had accused Alara of being a witch and using her powers to seduce the king. Now, Alara sat in the dungeon awaiting her trial, but she knew that there was no trial that could save her. The queen had already made up her mind, and the king was too afraid of his wife to stand up for her. Alara had first come to the castle at the request of the king himself. He had heard rumors of her healing powers, and he wanted her to cure his ailing son. But when Alara arrived, she found that the prince was not sick at all. He was cursed by a jealous enchantress, who wanted the prince for herself. With a wave of her magic wand, Alara broke the curse and healed the prince. The king was overjoyed and rewarded her with a noble title and a beautiful estate. But the queen was furious. She had heard rumors that Alara was using her powers to seduce the king, and she was determined to find out if they were true. One night, the queen confronted Alara in her chambers. "You are a witch," she hissed, "and I know that you have cast a spell on my husband." Alara was taken aback. She had never tried to seduce the king, but she understood that the queen didn't believe her. The queen dragged Alara to the dungeon, where she chained her to the wall and left her there to rot. Meanwhile, the king was searching for his beloved, but he couldn't find her anywhere. He asked his knights to search the kingdom for her, but they came back empty-handed. Days turned into weeks, and still there was no sign of Alara. The king was heartbroken, but he refused to give up hope. He knew that somewhere out there, Alara was waiting for him to rescue her from the clutches of the evil queen. Suddenly, while the king was riding through the forest, he saw a beautiful woman sitting on a stone. The woman was crying, and the king rode over to ask her what was wrong. "My lady, why do you weep?" he asked. The woman looked up and the king was stunned. It was Alara. She was more beautiful than he remembered, and her tears made her look even more pitiful. "Oh, noble sir," she cried, "I am cursed to turn into a frog every night, and only a kiss from a handsome prince can break the curse." The king felt sorry for the woman, and so he leaned over and kissed her, and then suddenly, she was gone. In her place was a beautiful princess. The princess smiled at the king and thanked him for breaking the curse. But she warned him that the queen was evil and that he should beware of her. With that, she vanished, leaving the king alone in the forest. When the king returned to the castle, he told the queen everything that had happened. But she didn't believe him. She thought that the princess was just another one of Alara's tricks. "You are a fool," she said to the king. "Don't you realize that you are being played?" But the king was sure that the princess was telling the truth. He knew that he had to rescue Alara from the dungeon, no matter what the cost. So that night, while everyone was sleeping, the king crept down to the dungeon. He unlocked Alara's chains and helped her escape from the castle. Together, they fled into the forest, where they lived happily ever after. The next morning, the queen awoke to find the king missing from his bed. She searched the castle, but he was nowhere to be found. She sent her knights to search the kingdom, but they also came back empty-handed. The queen was furious. She had never seen the king disobey her like this before. She knew that he must have run off with Alara, and she was determined to get them back. The queen rode to the dungeon, where she found the iron chains that had held Alara captive. She ripped them from the wall and rode as fast as she could to the forest. There she found the two lovers embracing under a tree. The queen was furious. She drew her sword and charged at Alara, but the king blocked her way. "You will not hurt her," he roared. The queen hesitated. She loved her husband, but she couldn't understand how he could betray her like this. "Why are you with that witch?" she demanded. The king looked into his wife's eyes and saw only hate and darkness. He knew that there was nothing left for him here. With Alara by his side, he turned his horse and rode away from the castle, away from the evil queen. They traveled for days, and finally they came across a small village. The king and Alara decided to stay there for a while, and soon they were welcomed by the village. The king was seen as a hero who had come to rescue them from the clutches of the evil queen, and Alara was seen as a savior who had broken the curse that had plagued their land. The people loved the king and Alara so much that they begged them to stay in the village forever, and so the king and Alara decided to make their home here. Many years passed, and the king and Alara ruled over the village with wisdom and fairness. They were loved by their people, and their son, who had been born after they fled the kingdom, was seen as a symbol of hope for the future. The king and Alara never forgot the evil queen, though they knew that she was still out there, plotting ways to take over the kingdom. But they were also aware that they had done the right thing by fleeing. They had saved themselves and their son from a life of misery and despair. One day, a messenger arrived from the neighboring kingdom. He told the king that his brother had died and that he was now the rightful heir to the throne. The king hesitated. He had sworn never to return to that kingdom, but he knew that he had a duty to his people. With Alara by his side, the king returned to the kingdom, where he was crowned a new king. The people were overjoyed, and they celebrated for days, but the king knew that his problems were far from over. The evil queen was still out there, and he knew that she would never give up her quest for power. As the king rode through the kingdom, he saw the faces of the people. They were filled with hope for the future, and he knew that he had to make them happy. He visited the towns and villages, and he made sure that everyone was living in peace and prosperity. He also met with the nobles and the clergy, and he made sure that they were on his side. All the while, the evil queen was watching from afar. She knew that the king had returned, and she was planning his downfall. But the king was too clever for her. He had foreseen her plans, and he had taken steps to protect himself. When the queen made her move, the king was ready for her. He defeated her army and took her to court. There she was put on trial for her crimes against the kingdom, and she was found guilty. The king could have killed her, but he was merciful. He sentenced her to spend the rest of her life in a dungeon, where she would never see the light of day again. With the evil queen out of the way, the king was able to rule the kingdom in peace. He and Alara were happy together, and their son grew up to be a fine young man. The king knew that he had made the right decision by staying away from the kingdom for so long. He had given his people time to heal and rebuild, and now they were ready for him to be their king. He ruled wisely and fairly, and he was loved by his people. The kingdom prospered, and the king and Alara lived happily ever after. And that's the end of today's story. If you liked it, please leave us a thumbs up and subscribe for more updates. We also have a page where you can read our full story. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.